مرحبا أصدقائي وأهلا وسهلا فيكم مرة تانية بالقناة. إذا كنتم مشتركين جدد بالقناة بعرفكم عن نفسي، أنا مس غادة، وبهي السلسلة رح تتعلموا اللغة الإنجليزية عن طريق القصص القصيرة. هي طريقة ممتعة وسلسة بالتعلم ورح تقوي عندكم مهارة الليسنينج والفوكابيلاريز. خليكم معنا. Hide and seek. A simple game of hide and seek leads the children into the adventure of their lives. An exciting story that will have little readers turning the pages, eager to know what comes next. Mark's dad tied the rope to the tree, found the hole under the tree trunk, wiggled a bit, and lowered himself into the cave. Sally could see him coming down the rope and stopped crying. Not only was he there, but the cave became brighter from the beam of his flashlight as it danced across the cave's floor and walls. As he reached the floor of the cave, he shone the light on Sally and gave her a big hug. "Don't be frightened," he said. "I'll have you out of here in no time." Then he shone the light around and saw that she had fallen into a small cave. And very close to her, in the middle of the cave, was something wrapped in layers of old blankets. "Mark, James, there's something down here. I am going to tie it to the rope and I want you to pull it out." "Okay," they replied. The boys pulled out the object, untied it, and let the loose end of the rope fall back into the cave. The cave wasn't deep, and Mark's dad boosted Sally over his head so she could crawl out. He then grabbed the rope and with a little jump was able to grab the opening and pull himself out. "Let's go back to my house for a cup of hot tea. I'll call your parents so they aren't worried, and we'll see what treasure Sally found," he said. When they got to Mark's house, they sipped their tea and began unwrapping the treasure. They carefully peeled off layers of old blankets and cloth to reveal a wooden box. They slowly opened it and stared in amazement. "Oh my!" Sally said in disbelief. "I don't believe what I'm seeing." The boys and Mark's father just stared. Inside the box were jewels of every color you could imagine. There were diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds of all shapes and sizes intermixed. They could see several gold coins and strands of pearls. "We're rich!" the boys screamed. "Not quite," interrupted Mark's father. "Someone could have lost this, and I don't think you should plan on spending any of it until we find out a little more. Besides, Sally found it." "I'll share it," Sally said happily. "That's nice, Sally," replied Mark's dad. "But the right thing to do is contact the authorities. The next day, the four of them and Sally's mother drove to the police station, explained what had happened, and gave the treasure to the police to hold while they conducted their investigation. They left the police station sadly, and even the double-dipped ice cream cones Mark's father bought for them didn't make them smile. They drove back in silence. Several weeks passed with no word from the police. Then, one evening, Mark's father called James, Sally, and their parents. "The police just called, and I think you should come over right now," he said. "I'm afraid there's some bad news about the treasure. The police are on their way and will explain everything when you get here." Sally and James didn't say much during the ride to Mark's house. Sally thought that since it was bad news, the treasure belonged to someone else, even though they probably lost it. "Whatever happened to finders keepers?" she mumbled. "What did you say, Sally?" her mother asked. "Oh, nothing," Sally replied. Then she let out a long, sad sigh that echoed through the car. When they arrived at Mark's house, the police were there with the treasure box. As Sally entered, the captain introduced himself and said, "Sally, this is yours. Your parents need to sign some papers, but the box and its contents are yours." Sally, Mark, and James shrieked with joy and danced around the room. Then Sally said, "What is the bad news?" The captain smiled and said, "The treasure is worth more money than you can imagine. And with your newfound wealth comes great responsibility." Sally didn't quite understand what the captain was talking about, and right now, it really didn't matter. Mark asked, "Are you going to share?" "Of course," Sally said. "If you and James didn't help me, I might still be there." Several days later, Sally asked everyone over to her house. "I have decided what to do with the money from the treasure after it is sold," she said. "I am giving 1/6 to our mom and dad, 1/6 to Mark's mom and dad, 1/6 to Mark, 1/6 to James, and 1/6 for me." "There is an extra 1/6, Mark proudly stated. He loved math and was right on top of Sally's calculations. "No, there's not," Sally said. "Is to," James said. "Is not," Sally said in an angered voice. Just as Mark was going to say, "They are at it again," Sally said. "This is why there isn't an extra 6th. I am giving it to the local charity, so it can be given to those less fortunate and in need." Her mother and father said it was a caring and responsible thing to do. They were very proud of her and knew that she understood what the captain meant when he had turned the treasure over to her just days before.